Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Fleur Bradley, who is the author of numerous short crime fiction as well as novel-length mysteries for kids, including award-winning Daybreak on Raven Island and Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. She is a literacy advocate and speaks at educator conventions on reaching reluctant readers. Welcome, Fleur, and thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I would love for you to chat about any of your books, whichever one is top of mind right now. And can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit?
Well, I can talk about both maybe Midnight at the Barclay Hotel and Daybreak on Raven Island. So Midnight at the Barclay Hotel was really my way of putting all my love for mystery in one book. That book is a lot like an Agatha Christie style mystery, and for slightly younger kids with some illustrations inside. And it's really fun. It gave me the opportunity to show Colorado a little bit because it's based on the Stanley Hotel, and it got me allowed me to show how you might investigate a crime. So finding motive, means, opportunity, that sort of thing. So I love that it's being used and continues to be used as an introduction to mystery for kids. Now, Daybreak on Raven Island came after that. And with that book, I really wanted to make it as scary as possible because something that came out of writing Midnight at the Barclay Hotel and doing lots of school visits, because this was during COVID when everybody was at home and there was a lot more teaching being done virtually. So that was a time when I got to really connect with kids one on one a lot. And they loved ghosts in Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. So I thought, okay, I want to write the scariest book I possibly can. So I thought of Alcatraz, and Alcatraz to me always is a bit like mysterious and scary. And I created Raven Island similarly to the Barclay Hotel, where it's based on a real life location. And these three kids go on a field trip and are stuck overnight on Raven Island. And they must ghost hunt and solve the mystery of an older murder and a more recent mystery. And that one was a lot of fun because I got to put all my things that I find scary or that I could think of to find scary into that book. And I thought of my sister a lot with that one because my sister likes the scary stuff. I'm not really all that much into scary things. I get spooked very easily. So it was very fun to sort of write that one for, for my thinking of my sister and myself at a younger age, trying to scare her and make it a book that she would have loved maybe at that age. So that's kind of those two books, my most recent books, in a nutshell. And one, Daybreak on Raven Island, is just a little bit older than Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. So I think what naturally happens is kids read Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, and then as they are a little bit older as well, um, they'll read Daybreak on Raven Island. So that one's been a lot of fun, and they both have been on Battle of the Books lists and won awards, which I'm very grateful and honored by, and continue to do well. So, yeah,
Yeah, congratulations.
thank you.
I love that you're talking about the spooky side of middle grade. That's been a big conversation with librarians lately about why kids like spooky books so much and that
Mhm.
there's a place for that. Do you find that you're leaning more in that direction as you're continuing to write, or do you feel like maybe it was just for this book, or what are your thoughts on that?
So a more recent book, well, I've written two more recent middle grades. One of them is definitely a very much a scary, where I leaned into that side of the spooky book. And on the flip side, I have one that's a little bit more of a mystery. I think what's fun to me, anyways, about writing spooky or scary books is that it marries so well with mysteries, because mysteries are kind of my love and the thing I like to write most. And they're kind of like, like I was talking about my sisters, they're kind of like sisters. There's a lot of elements to horror or scary books, that mysterious part and trying to figure out what is making whatever makes you scared happen. There's an investigation element to that. So um, that works really well together. I think those two genres work really well together. So that's been really fun. And kids just love it. Kids can't get enough of scary books and mysteries also, which is, makes it good for me because that's all in my wheelhouse. But I definitely had to learn how to lean into that scarier part and adding ghosts and adding mysterious elements, supernatural elements that would complement the story and still keep it the mystery that I like to write.
That's great. Um, so the intended age group for your books, you were saying that Midnight at the Barclay Hotel is for a little bit younger, middle grade, and then Daybreak on Raven Island a little bit older. Do you have, is that your preferred um, age group to write for, or do you have other age groups that you also enjoy?
I also write YA, so I've been working on some YA mysteries. But middle grade is definitely where my heart is, I would say. I like the age group. I like the visits with the kids. I like that interaction with kids. And yeah, that to me, that makes the writing really fun and keeps it, kids at the sort of 8 to 12 range or 7 to 12 are still kind of uncovering a lot of things about the world and how the world works and how to find your identity and your comfort in all of that. And there's so much to write about for that age group. So I definitely enjoy that a lot. YA is completely different sort of sentiment and definitely different considerations.
Absolutely. So when did you become a writer, or what drew you down this path?
So a very long time ago, when my kids were very little, I just wanted to do something for myself. So I wanted to do something that was just for me because when you're a mom, it's busy and a lot of yourself goes into um, raising kids and being there all the time. And I love to read. And I thought to myself, maybe I can write a story. And what's wonderful about writing, I think, and why I encourage people to write, is that as passions or hobbies or interests go, um, it's a great one to have because it doesn't cost much money. With a notebook and a pen in the corner, you can be a writer. Anybody who writes is a writer. So I found that really exciting. I could create whatever I wanted. I could explore different things that I was thinking about or feeling with writing. So I did that, and I love mysteries from the get go. That's kind of been something that goes back way when I was younger. Um, and I wrote short mysteries for a long time because I kind of needed to learn the craft. I started off writing a novel, and that was terrible. It looks so easy, right? When you're reading a book, you're thinking, oh, I can do that. But it turns out to be very difficult. And that's okay because I really enjoyed that journey of writing short stories and learning the craft and learning how to tell the story, how to create characters and situations, and how to uh, develop my prose, like how something sounds and how it looks, and all the things that you have, all the tools you have as an author. You can really practice those very well writing short fiction. So that was really fun. I did that for about 10 years. That's all I did. Got a lot published, small press and online, which was really fun and validating. And it kind of gave me the fuel to go, okay, I think I can write a novel now. And that took me still a long time, lots of drafts, lots of storytelling, learning, and then eventually my very first book was published, Double Vision, which is a trilogy of kind of spy kids, fun antics sort of book, which was a lot of fun to write. So I kind of rolled into middle grade that way.
Excellent. Um, Great. And you talked about why for this age group, about how middle graders are still learning about the world and kind of exploring their space within it. How do you see that coming into your storytelling? Like, do you focus on specific elements of life learning when you start
Mhm.
writing a book, or do you kind of have it evolve as you're writing?
I usually start off with the concept, the mystery, the setting. So that feeds a lot of my ideas, like what I wanted to feel, what I wanted to say, what I want the story to say. Um, and then I develop characters. And then my most recent books, there's three protagonists, basically three kids that are telling the story. So it's a lot of work because you have to create three fully developed, interesting characters that a reader can connect with. What I like to do is create characters that maybe wouldn't ordinarily sit at the same lunch table, like kids that are very different and wouldn't be natural friends or wouldn't really naturally be together, and then sort of put them together and show that. And I think this is a lesson for us adults too. that working together and connecting with people that maybe aren't like you or that are different or have different opinions or come from a different place or culturally are different, to make that effort to connect. And for in this case, the kids are forced together, so they have to solve mystery together. But what I hope comes out of it, and I hope kids get out of it, is like, hey, maybe that kid who's sitting next to me in class, they seem very different, but we probably have stuff in common, and we might be able to work together and have complementary things to offer, that would make for a great friendship or collaboration. So that's something that I like to do, and that does take a decent amount of work, to develop those characters. But I like to draw a little bit from real life, like for instance in Daybreak on Raven Island, there's Noah, one of the characters in there, and he's afraid of everything and lots of anxiety. And I drew that from my own kids. My youngest daughter had some severe anxiety, and so I kind of understood what that feels like, and I tried to put myself in the shoes of a character. What would it be like to be afraid of everything? And what would it be like to then be stuck on Raven Island, which is very scary? So trying to pull out those characteristics, I think works well for middle grade, um, because kids are still trying to figure out who they are and where they fit. Well, we all are on some level, always. But at that particular age, sort of that 10, 12-year-old kid is really trying to figure out, how do I fit and how do I fit in and how much do I want to fit in? Do I maybe not want to fit in so much, or what does that take? And to make friends and those elements. So that middle grade is a unique window into what that's like, I think. And developing the characters is a very important part of that. So that usually takes me the longest when I'm working on a middle grade book, is to figure out what makes this main character tick and how do I make them jump off the page, and how do I make it so maybe a kid who's reading that book feels connected. So if they're afraid of everything, maybe if they see Noah, like, oh, there's another kid, and this is not that unusual, and this is how you might handle being afraid of everything, and how you might be able to overcome that or share that with someone, so you're not alone.
I think that's a really powerful aspect of children's literature in general is
Mhm.
having, and especially now, I feel like there's a lot more voices doing this work, of showcasing differences among people and how those differences can coexist. I think that's
Mhm.
really powerful to learn that at such a young age and then be able to carry that forward. So thank you for doing
Yeah,
that work
yeah.
to
And
make.
I think that those differences also make us better, right? Make us stronger. Like if I connect with someone who's different, it opens my mind. So it makes me more, I feel like it makes me a better person. And I learn different things from different people, different ages, different backgrounds. Like, oh, I didn't know that. Or, hey, look how they handled this. That's interesting. That's a great way to do that. And maybe I'll give that a try. So yeah, there's so much that books can do, particularly in that space, because it can show an example of, hey, this is how you might be able to connect with someone who is very different than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite character in either of your stories, and what makes them your favorite if you do?
Ooh, it's tough because I like all the characters for a different reason. Um, so in Minute at the Barclay Hotel, I really like Penny because she's a lot like B. She likes to read, and she's a little bit, sort of afraid to go out there and do bold things, and that's what she hopes to do. But then JJ in that book is kind of fun, and he just wants to go ghost hunting. So those characters are fun to write. Similarly, Marvin in Daybreak on Raven Island, he just wants to make a movie, and he's not afraid to just go and do stuff without thinking about it. He makes mistakes and he does not so smart things, but it's fun as a writer to write from that perspective, like, oh, what would I do here if I didn't care at all about what happened, or if I really just wanted to go over here, and like he jumps off the ferry and makes the kids that are on his team, he kind of causes the problem, but it's by being brave and being bold, and sometimes you make a mistake, but those characters are fun to write. And then, of course, Noah kind of had my heart because of being afraid of everything. New kid, lost his mom, so I could relate to that a little bit in the sense that, obviously my daughter being afraid of stuff, but also being that new kid in class where you're just like he's had a growth spurt, so his pants don't fit and they're too short, and it's just lots of little ways where I can remember feeling that way as a kid. And that's an important part too, is of being a writer for kids. You don't want to talk down to kids and tell them how it is. You want to remember what it felt like when you were 12 and what you were worried about, and what, the problems that to us adults don't seem like a very big deal are a big deal when you're 12. If your pants are too short and you feel like you're an odd duck and you're wearing clothes that are, maybe thrifted or where you got from your cousin. So there's, lots of little details in each of the characters, that I bring kind of from experience and memories, and just kids that I know, or just kind of see, also observing kids as I do school visits. And that's a lot of fun. So I like them all kind of for a different reason.
That's a really nice segue actually into my next question, is what sort of research or preparation you do in as you're building these stories.
Oh gosh, so the characters are a big deal, and I kind of talked about that. But for me, the setting is huge, because it directs the story, and it directs what happens in the story, and it becomes a character. So for Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, that was obviously the Stanley Hotel here in Colorado. Lots of history there, and in creating the Barclay Hotel, which is based on that, I could put it anywhere. So if you've been to the Stanley Hotel, it's you can just walk down Estes Park. So that's not going to work for a mystery writer if you want to isolate your characters, make it so they can't leave. Like, oh, I'll put it on the mountain and throw a snowstorm in. So those things are huge, like research, and then creating a map, which sounds kind of sort of like, what's the big deal? Why do you need a map? Well, it's really easy to forget how long it takes to get from one place to another. So apart from part of my research is also creative, in the sense that I have to create this world, even though it's based on a real one. I obviously adapt it to suit my needs as a writer. And Raven Island is similar to that. I created a map and where showed where everything is and how long does it take a kid to walk from one direction to another. All those minor things but can become big problems if you don't plan them ahead. Um, so a little bit of a spoiler, but in Daybreak on Raven Island, there's underground tunnels, and the kids have bicycles for a reason, because otherwise it would just take them way too long to get to where they needed to go. And it's little stuff like that. I like to do historical research, a bit of a history nut. I like to find stories that have happened in real life, and then see how I can adapt them and use them in a book, and show kids that, hey, there's lots of interesting things around you, places that maybe, even if you're not in Colorado, places that are interesting and that have interesting stories and had interesting people that did things that you might want to learn about, and that you can write your own story about, like what could have happened to those people, what could be in the instance of Raven Island. There was a prison escape at Alcatraz with three men that nobody knows if they made it off, did they drown, did they go somewhere. And then that's, for a story writer, of course, hugely beneficial, because you can use that, and I can make up what happened to these people. I can do what I like with that. And when I do school visits, I like to tell the kids, because a lot of them are aspiring writers, or maybe have just a little bit of an inkling. I mean, everybody loves stories, I like to think. So I try to encourage kids to do the same, to do some research into your local area. Use your imagination. Anything is possible when you write a story. So that's also a lot of fun. And that beginning stage of the story, where I'm just researching and I'm just looking for it. It's kind of like, mining for gold, looking for history, and looking at little details that might be interesting to use in a story.
What do you hope that readers come away with after reading any of your books in particular or in general?
Just in general, I think the working together thing, the talking to each other, respecting each other, and not being afraid to share if you're having a difficult problem that you're dealing with, or that you're not alone. Because a lot of us carry things around, and I think particularly kids today, so many hard things that happen to kids that we don't talk about enough. Like in Daybreak on Raven Island, I have a character, Tori, whose brother is in prison, and she carries that around because she's too afraid to share it. And I think that things like that, difficult things that happen in your life, it's good to share those, whether you're an adult or a kid, with somebody, and let people know, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is really hard. And then we can help each other, support each other. So I hope kids come away with that it's okay to share if something is happening in your life that's very difficult. You don't need to deal with it alone. So that's a come away. And then, just fun. I love mysteries. I hope that kids are inspired by reading these books. My goal is always to keep kids reading because it's really important. And I do a talk on reaching reluctant readers, kids that maybe don't like to read or present to say, I don't feel like reading. Well, how do you keep those kids reading? Because it does so much for the brain and for developmental milestones and all sorts of stuff. It's really important that we keep kids reading. It needs to be like our number one priority as parents and as educators. So I try to keep kids excited. Like, this is fun. Stories are fun. You can share them with your friends. We can all read the same book together and talk about it. And it can read, like, for instance, Daybreak on Raven Island is very much, my goal with that was to make it feel like a movie, to make it feel like when you're reading it, very visual, very much like a scary movie that you might watch, like a Goosebumps thing or something like that. So I hope that kids get away from my books that it's fun to read, and hopefully they'll read then the next thing. That's my real goal, is not for them to read just my books, but to then turn around and maybe try something, a different book, and a more difficult book maybe, or whatever, or something fun, and to keep reading for fun.
I love that. Um, and you mentioned earlier that a lot of the kids that you talk to tend to have some sort of an interest in writing, whether they know it yet or not.
Mhm.
What sort of advice would you offer to kids or adults who might be considering writing on their own?
Try to read a lot and read as a detective. So instead of reading a book as a reader, kind of look at, how did the author accomplish this? So I really love this main character. Why do I connect with that character so much? What is it about uh, the writing and what the author did for me to feel that way? How did they plot the story? Are there books maybe that you don't like, and why? And what books do you like? Like, for instance, if you like graphic novels, great. Which ones and why? And what stories do you gravitate towards? Like, I think trying to figure out who you are and where you fit as a storyteller is a big deal. So reading a lot is always my first advice. I spend more time reading than I do writing, because that's how I learn still. And it's a craft. So, which is fun because you can always get better and learn more. So if you're starting out, read a lot, read as a detective, find out what you love to read, and then go write that thing and give it a go and just do it and make mistakes. And then maybe find somebody who also likes to write so you can share stories. And that's a lot of fun, particularly for kids. I think if you can connect with somebody who also likes to write, even if maybe they're not like a natural friend or somebody, again, that you would sit at the same lunch table with, maybe they also like to write. They're just a different kid. That's great. You can give each other feedback, and keep each other encouraged to write. But yes, read a lot and then just have fun.
Excellent. Now, this is a fun question. Do you have any other projects in the works? Anything that's coming up the pipeline that you want to share?
Ah, gosh, I have so many. I'm kind of in that stage where I'm in the writing cave, I call it, which is, it feels, there's no cave, but it feels like it. Like I'm just sort of hunkered down, and it's a wonderful place to be because you just kind of developing new stories. So I do have some manuscripts that are in the pipeline and in various stages of submission that I can't share yet. But I am working on a book because I do so much talking and teaching about writing mysteries for kids. I'm working on a book to kind of teach people how to write a mystery for kids and how that's different, how you might plot that, and how you put that together and make it a good story. So that's what I'm working on. I'm hoping that will be out in the fall. So,
Keep us posted.
yeah.
Um, is there a question that you hoped I would ask you that I did not?
No, I think you're really thorough. So, no, I mean that's about it. Oh, the most important question I always get: pineapple on pizza or not? I am for the pineapple on pizza. team. So, I'll duck now because there's a lot of people that don't
I
believe in
also like
pineapple on
pineapple
pizza.
on pizza, so you're safe.
I love a good Hawaiian pizza. It's so much fun. It makes me feel like I'm somewhere tropical when it's winter here in Colorado. So,
Absolutely. I love that you get that question a lot. That's like
yeah,
something that's top of mind for people.
yeah. Well, particularly the kids because it's so much fun, and especially during COVID, we would just sort of banter and talk about our favorite color, our favorite foods, things we enjoyed doing, and that's a lot of fun because that's how you get to know someone, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Fleur, where can readers find more about you and your work going forward?
So you can buy my books wherever books are sold. And then on my website, ftbradley.com, you can find kind of where I'm going, where I'm going to be speaking and doing things for both writers and for kids. So you can kind of keep track and see what's next.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Fleur. And if any of Fleur's books sound like great fits for you or for someone you know, I hope you look for them wherever you get your books. Thanks again, Fleur, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.